You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
Do you need a car? Been shopping only to be turned down because of bad credit, low credit, no credit, bankruptcy, or divorce? Guess what? Today's your lucky day, because now you can buy a car, truck, or SUV, just about any vehicle. It's true. Bad credit doesn't matter. No credit doesn't matter. Bankruptcy or divorce, it just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, your job is your ticket to your new vehicle. We're Auto Credit Express, and we've helped thousands of people just like you. Antonio H. told us, great company, got me connected, and the day I went in, I drove off in the car I wanted. 100% worth your time. Need a car? Get started now and drive off as early as today. Just text FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911 right now to get started. That's FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911. Auto financing the easy way. Text FINANCE to 357-911.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It's takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
A purple mountain majesties over the fruited plain. But now wait a minute, I'm talking about America, sweet America. You know, God done shed his grace on thee.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Bill O'Reilly, and I'm here with my co-host, Liz Neuer-Feld, and we're here to talk about the never-ending saga of American politics as it is in 2019. How are you doing tonight, Liz?
Hey, Billy, how are you? Happy Monday, or not so happy Monday? I don't know. Do you hate Mondays? You get that pit in your stomach on Sunday nights like we used to in school with the, oh no, another week?
Depends on the Sunday. It wasn't so bad last night.
Depends on the client.
You know, I've drudged up on my it, and it reads Dem establishment warns to Bernie. And at the second half of the screen, the second screen is like Venezuela collapsing. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with this picture? Good Lord.
Yeah. No, what's bad? On both situations in Venezuela is tragic, and I don't know how closely you've been following it, but the pictures out of there are frightening. And I know Marco Rubio has been a big leader on this. He really was trying to draw attention to this 2 years ago, or even longer ago than that. But I don't think anybody ever thought we were going to get to the point where we're at right now. No, no power, no water, nothing.
Yeah, I was watching some videos. I mean, they're talking about people dying in hospital beds because they can't get dialysis and other type things. But apparently the obviously can read in the papers, but the food is all spoiling. So people that have food to sell are, one person was giving it away to street kids that were homeless, and the food's running out. And I mean, I think the last thing any American wants is us intervening in Venezuela to head down to South America. But there may be a situation where you could have a UN force that's got to go in there or something, but they seem to be getting close. I mean, that's just awful.
Well, some kind of food drop or all the humanitarian aid that we were trying to send down there, never made it across the border, as you know, or is all intercepted by Maduro and his thugs. So, I as far as, life-saving provisions, I think airdrop's probably the only way to go, unless, as you talked about, some kind of ground intervention.
Right. It's just crazy. I mean, Venezuela is like such a wealthy country. I mean, they're the country that's been propping up in 93. And now, Venezuelans been their sugar daddy with oil. But apparently the GDP of Venezuela has been cut in half. The inflation is at $1 billion% or some insane number like that. But it's, what's amazing, Liz, is that this is what I apologize. There's a recording going on behind me. Somebody called into our phone. But what's amazing is that politics and politicians, like mortal beings, can do this to a country. It's just amazing. I mean, Venezuela always had its problems, and there's always poverty, and there's poverty everywhere. But that was one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America, if not the. And you look at it now, and it's a catastrophe.
Yeah, and I don't know what the United Nations is doing about it, and I don't know what kind of coalition needs to be assembled to take care of it, because obviously it can't be the United States alone. But something's got to be done soon. As you said, people are dying now in the streets, dying, and in hospitals.
And I suspect that the Venezuelan military is gonna break at some point. That they're going to. You saw. I was watching video last night of some of the troops over by the border where some of the aid was burning, and evidently there was kind of worldwide rumor went out there that the troops had been ordered by Maduro to burn the aid. It looks like it was actually an errant Molotov cocktail that burned the stuff, but they weren't letting the aid in. And you watch the soldiers on some of these videos shouting towards the protesters, and they were panicked, the soldiers, and they were like they see, at least the ones that were filmed, they did not want to open fire, certainly, and they did not want to fight, and they were like, we've got everyone bad. And then you think about Colombia next door, which is now the nation of stability in that region, and it's incredible. In Colombia, it was a mess 20 years ago. I mean, it was so dangerous, and now Colombia is stable. It's it's such obviously a strong U.S. ally, and they're doing so much to help Venezuelans that come over, but something's got to give, and it's going to be a bad situation. And I'm sure and then what, Liz? What's amazing is how when you watch a Superman movie or something, there's always the villain side. Every time something's going wrong, the Russians have an arm in it. Putin's still defending Venezuela, and it's like, come on, are you like a Darth Vader mask?
Well, Syria too. I mean, it's amazing how Syria, or I shouldn't say amazing, actually, just shocking and disgusting that Syria's been bounced right out of the news. All of the atrocities in Aleppo, where you hear of Assad literally using chemical weapons against his own people, and we've got a ton of attention for a while, and it's over. It's over. And there is Putin right there in the middle of that.
No, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
I think I may have lost you for a second there, Liz, but it could be me on my end.
Well, yeah, I was just saying Putin in the middle of the atrocities in Syria as well. So, and of course, we're not hearing any Syria anymore. I think some of the most moving pictures that I've seen in the last couple of years are those white hats in Aleppo doing just the most heroic interventions, saving these children and adults from the chemical weapons. It's just incredible.
It's amazing. And the White Hats if anyone hasn't seen that documentary, if you have Netflix or it may be free on YouTube, there's a great documentary on the White Hats. And they really seem to be, or at least are portrayed as apolitical. They're really just trying to keep people alive. And they have a GoFundMe page. I think they got me one night where I watched it, and it's like, how can you not send, a few dollars if you have it, to help them. But you're right. There's always the Russians in the background, pulling strings, destabilizing. It's just what they love to do, just like they did with Cuba for so many years. They were just looking to destabilize the entire region. And they do it in Africa, they do it in South America. And, one thing I was thinking about last night, you look at the numbers of young Americans that don't understand what socialism is. And, you see Bernie Sanders using the term unabashedly. And, it occurs to me that the real crisis in America, or one of the real crises in America, is a crisis of academics. The political left really, I assume it was a concerted effort, but they have completely taken over academia. That's hardly news. And how is it possible that socialist systems that have always collapsed so spectacularly, and you look at the only reason that China is still viable is that they allowed capitalism. It's the only reason Vietnam is bouncing back is they allowed capitalism. The collapsed, and capitalism bailed them out, although it's really kind of crony stuff. But still, you have young people believing that there's some socialist dream that's viable. And you look at Venezuela; it's right in front of their faces, and they're still reporting that, and it comes right out of the college classroom. I've got to think.
Well, you think it's because historically the Republicans it was all about funding, that the debate was always about funding, and this is how it's all played out at the smallest level in the classroom. You know, that the Republicans were always threatening to or were cutting public education funds. They take a certainly very different view. They support charter schools. It's about teachers' unions. And, you know, I think you're talking more at the university level, but nonetheless.
University level. Yeah.
Yeah. But nonetheless, the academia and the Republican Party have rarely gone hand in hand.
No, that's for sure. Right. I think not since Pink Floyd The Wall videos. Right, yeah. But, no, I think that's right, but there's such a disconnect. I mean, there's such a disconnect. You had Andrea Ocasio-Cortez, you know, talking about, and I understand, I think, what she was trying to say, but when she says that capitalism is an irredeemable system. I mean, capitalism for Oops, I think, do you hear somebody on the line there, Liz?
No, but you were breaking up a little bit there.
Yeah, I had something like somebody was like coming on, which is very, very strange. But I mean, for all it's you know, capitalism is very reality based. Yes, there are winners and losers, but you know, you can't make money without enriching other people in capitalism because you have to hire them, you have to sell them products, you have to, you know, the thing works pretty darn well. And the reason that the rates of poverty around the world are the lowest in history today is capitalism. And yet you still have ostensibly an educated country like the U.S. that was built, that succeeded, you know, to degrees unimaginable to the founders because of capitalism. You have whole generations of Americans questioning whether it's a good system, flirting with socialism while Venezuela burns. You know, I just find it amazing. I don't have an answer to it, but I'm really kind of jaw open from it.
No, well, and you know, even John Hickenlooper, I would say he's the latest entry into the Democratic primary, but I'm not so sure for 2020, because I don't know what happened today. I think tomorrow we're going to hear about Biden, but you know, he also the other day refused to say that he supported capitalism. So we've now got Bernie Sanders officially saying he's a socialist. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's not running, but she's certainly had more influence than anybody right now on the people who are running and who are, and sitting members on the Hill. It's a stunning turn. I got to say. By the way, in addition to her comments about capitalism, she's also calling Ronald Reagan a racist. I don't know if you had a chance to see that yesterday.
I did. In fact, I think I almost wanted to ignore that I saw it because I didn't want it to get that mad. You know, I wasn't in the mood to be angry.
I mean,
isn't that incredible?
It's incredible. She actually said, quote, he pitted white working class Americans against brown and black working class Americans to screw over all working class Americans. She got no evidence of that whatsoever.
Right.
So,
and to me, it comes right out of a crappy college textbook. It comes right out of a lazy professor or pernicious professor that just spews this drivel. I mean, it's so blind to reality.
It is. I know.
I find it incredible.
But you know,
Liz, also though.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say all these socialist paradises. You know, the one thing that they all managed to try and convince, or to actually convince, you know, some segments of populations that the paradise would have been there if only it wasn't for America or those, you know, evil international capitalists. Because otherwise they had it going, everything was going to be utopia, and then like Cuba, you know, if it wasn't for the U.S., you know, meanwhile they trade with the rest of the world. If it wasn't for the U.S., everything would be fine, you know.
Yeah, and we're sort of dangerously getting back to the debate about accusations about who hates and loves America, because that's really what this. I mean, when you boil it right down, what has she said? And I'll just use her as an example since she's the most visible on this stuff. That is actually shows that she's either proud of this country, supports the ideals and principles of this country, that she's willing to fight for them, I tell you, it's between that and what we're getting from Congresswoman Omar about Israel, and we've got quite a stew pot right now about lining up.
Yeah, it's you know, and I sometimes wonder whether things are too good in America, and I know that may be a terrible thing to say, but it's when you have the time. I remember do you remember Platoon, the movie Platoon? And Charlie Sheen, volunteers to be in Vietnam, and he's talking to, I forgot the actor's name, but one wonderful actor who plays, he's African American, plays a poor guy grunt who was drafted, into the military. And he says, "How did you get here? You look like a rich boy, basically. You look like a college boy." And he said, Charlie Sheen says, "I volunteered for it. Can you believe it?" And he said, "I figured, why are all the poor kids, getting drafted, and all the rich kids in college don't get to, don't have to serve?" Actor said.
Yeah, no, you and I have talked about this a bit before. Just, it is, I think, one of the biggest sins here is that we you have all this time to think. You take things for granted, and you start to question everything, and it's like, Bernie Sanders, when's the last time Bernie Sanders did like some physical work? At his age, maybe he shouldn't. But has he ever produced anything? I mean, have any of these people ever actually made things, or did he ever work at McDonald's? Did he ever? They're just so spoiled. Yeah, and they go. I agree, and also back to these people who've been in office for an awfully long time, and they're still angry and miserable and think things are terrible. What have you done to be part of any change or solution to the stuff that you're criticizing, for starters? Or maybe stop and think that the rest of the country doesn't support that kind of approach at large.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. Well, it looks like Bernie Sanders is leading in the polls, right? So far, I know he's killing it on the fundraising, but he and Biden are the top two in I think it was the latest New Hampshire or Iowa, which is funny. I mean, I know we're talking 15 months out or 18 months out, but he's still got a huge following.
He does, and the thing is, I mean, I know it's 15 months out, and everything can and to some extent, but the Democratic primary is going to be a lot shorter than most people think. I mean, the debates are starting in a couple of months. And by the end of next March, it may be wrapped up. I mean, it may be done a year from now, because of the change in primary dates and the rest of it. And, if somebody really breaks out, whether it's a Sanders or somebody else, or Beto at work or something, it could be done, fairly soon. But that the Democratic Party is going to be able to be sensible enough. I mean, I know, it sounded like you want to rig the election, but be sensible enough I should say the Democratic voters, the primary voters. Are they going to be sensible enough to pull back from some of these utter lunatics?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know if you saw the news the other day that the party got together and agreed that they're not going to let Fox host any of the primary debates. And if they want to attract any voters outside of their party, the idea that they're all disqualifying Fox from broadcasting debates is a good first step. I mean, I watch all the debates. I don't care what party it is. I watch them all, but I'm a nerd, and I think you probably watch them too. Why wouldn't you let Fox on the list? And then on top of that, you had Jeff Zucker, who's, runs CNN, out bad-mouthing the journalists who work at Fox, including Chris Wallace and Brett Baer and Martha McCallum, just saying, I don't know if you saw this, that they choose to work at Fox and they don't get to hide behind the fact that they're excellent journalists or anchors. The fact is they work at a place that has done tremendous damage to this country. This from the head of CNN. So I don't know where we're going.
I did see that interview. Yeah.
What do you make of all of this?
And I realize some of the shows on Fox could be a little over the top and talking point-y, but I've got to say that Fox in the presidential debates in the last 2 or 3 cycles has been, if not the best cable news network, certainly one of them. I thought they've been really fair, and I thought that they held Republicans feet to the fire just as much as they did the Democrats. I thought they've been excellent. Chris Wallace was excellent. I thought, God, I'm forgetting her name. Who did? Megyn Kelly. I think she was tough. She was tough. She asked great questions. She paid for it ultimately, but Fox was not giving easy shots to Republicans in any sense, and it was noticeable. It was marked in those debates. But that's, I think that's the talking points. But it was kind of striking, that the CNN, chairman went out there like that. Maybe he's jealous of the ratings. But, I mean, CNN has got its own thing. You're right. You mentioned something last week, Liz, speaking of CNN, that I find interesting. You were talking about how, I think you mentioned it on the show, about how you're beginning to notice the networks covering other news besides just Trump. And I don't think there's any question that's beginning to happen. I had I was up in Boston over the weekend and drove back and forth and had CNN a couple of times, and it wasn't all Trump for the first time in 2.5 years.
So do you think, I guess the question would be, is it a strategy to now start marginalizing him, and not give him the time, or is there really just not a lot of news, nothing to do? I mean, maybe they're just waiting for the Mueller report, although, again, who knows if there's going to be any big bomb coming out of there. I didn't think there was a lot of hysteria over the Manafort sentencing, which there might have been.
Right. No, exactly. And I'm wondering the same things, Liz. Are people just getting bored of it? Until Manafort comes out, it's all kind of just talk until that report comes out. It's either real or it's not. And I wonder, but I get the sense that there seems to be a real strategic decision. I'm just guessing from, working around the news industry for a long time, that, or maybe there's a fear that they'll be left with nothing if Mueller ends up being empty, that there's going to be nothing to sustain the network. Who knows?
Yeah. Yes. Do you think that they're going to line up behind any of the Democratic primary candidates? When I say line up, it's going to be obvious who they're favoring.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a great question, and I wonder if it's, is it the sexiest candidate? Is it and I don't mean physically sexy. I mean the one that's playing best with their demographic, with their audience demographic. I heard, I don't know who was listening to last night, but I was on the radio in the car again, and I think somebody was talking about Beto O'Rourke, and they're talking about the South by Southwest and the rest of it. And the commentator was saying, he proved that he should be on that stage. He deserves, belongs to be on that stage. And it's just incredible that it was an honest assessment probably from where we are. But its speaking style is what people now assume is the qualification to be on the stage to be president of the United States. Whether you can stand on stage and walk back and forth with an open collar and hit little zingers and time them well and of tough questions. And that now qualifies you to be on stage to be president. It's incredible. It's not accomplishments or backup or demeanor or management skills. He deserved to be on that stage because he's a good BS artist. And I'm not saying I'm sure he's got some good qualities. And I'm a PR guy, so I don't mean BS necessarily in a bad way. But just he's able to BS, and so he's able to be a candidate for president.
And draw a huge crowd. That seems to be the other threshold. That when they look at metrics for viability, it's about the size of the crowd you can draw, in addition to the fact that you can look like Bobby Kennedy with your sleeves rolled up. So, and I'm not saying that to be snarky. I think you hit the nail on the head with what the media defines as. If you had practiced long enough, we could probably pull together a few people. But so as opposed to substance, and I guess this is where Elizabeth Warren might be punished, because whether we agree with her or not, and I think we don't, on most, if not all of her platform, she is a serious woman, a serious candidate. She's a serious senator. She has very lengthy and substantive credentials. And yet I don't see 20,000 people filling a stadium to hear her rock and roll. So I don't know what.
Do you feel badly for her? I've heard you say it a couple of times. Do you feel badly because she is somebody of some, whether I know you don't like her politically, but she is substantive. Do you feel badly how quickly people can be overlooked?
No, because what I feel is what I said a couple of months ago, which is an angry candidate is a lot less appealing than a hopeful candidate. So when Beto O'Rourke talks about, the future of America, even though he and Elizabeth Warren probably agree with 90% of things that are wrong, he talks about all hope and change. He's much more, sing-songy than she is. And I think she's just unappealing that way. No one likes a school marm and a lecturer. And, Obama, it was interesting. He got away with being kind of wonky because he also had a really hopeful, look at him. He was so charismatic. When you look back, in his first election, how he would motivate and electrify a crowd. It was an interesting, he really had a spectacular set of talents because he was also, he had the mind of a Columbia-educated scholar.
Right. And it's amazing because he said nothing at the time, and he said it so beautifully. I remember watching it saying, I want to be part of this. I'm conservative, and I'm rooting for the other guy. But you'd watch the wave of excitement that people had, including some of my siblings, and I'm thinking, I would love to be part of this, but it's completely empty. There's nothing there. But he did it so well. And you're right, the school marm thing, I just have a terrible reaction. I must have had a nasty teacher someplace. Because when I see Elizabeth Warren come on stage, I literally hear the nails on the chalkboard. It's just, oh God, no! Anybody but like screaming into the water, just let me cover my ears. But you're right. There is some substance there. But what's her latest thing? She wants to break up Google or something. She wants to break up big companies, Amazon, and who else is she after? Anybody successful she's after?
Anybody, I think she's taking her message around breaking up the bank and applying it to any other quote-unquote monopoly. She thinks that Facebook that Instagram should be spun out from Facebook, that there's no way the same holding company or corporation should have access to all of this data and all this information and have all this control over you and me, as if users don't know how this works now. So she wants to do exactly that. She went through company by company, and we're talking big tech companies now, to talk about which division should be spun out.
Right.
So, I don't see her getting a lot of Silicon Valley money. I'm not sure where her money's going to come from. My understanding is that she's been very cagey or quiet about revealing her donor, how much she's raising. So maybe she's going to come in with some huge amount after the first filing.
Yeah.
But, Bernie, $1 donors he's got, the grassroots. Kamala Harris reported her early, right after her announcement, her post-announcement, haul, but I haven't seen anything from Elizabeth Warren.
No, I haven't seen any of the numbers either. I've got a serious question for you because I never satisfied. It always goes. It's always looking for something else. What do you think it's ultimately after? Like, does it know? It's almost like an addiction. Like it's an appetite that can't be sated, and they're always if only we attacked this and got rid of this, everything would be okay. What do you think they're ultimately after?
I'm sorry, because I missed the first part of the question. The Democrats, the candidates who are running?
Yeah, we broke up a little bit. I'm so sorry. It must be an internet thing on my end. Can you hear me okay now, Liz?
Sure can. What do I think they're after? I think they're ultimately after income equality. I think they're after redistribution of wealth. Because I think at the underlying a lot of almost all their policies, certainly their domestic policy, is that. Life is a zero-sum game. If you have 2 slices of meatloaf and I only have 1 slice of meatloaf, then it's totally unfair and something went wrong and someone needs to be in charge to fix it. I think really it's all about that. Everything. They say it's about protecting the little guy, but they just don't understand that the little guy wants to be left alone to run his business. They don't want the government to tell him how to run their business. This is a lack of respect for people being able to make their own decisions and having opportunity. I think we're all for equal I know it's not for equal opportunity in a way you have to, unpack that and what does that mean and how do you get there. But that I don't even see that for them. There's this anger at wealth and anger, which is laughable when you look at the rest of some of these candidates. It's a joke. It's a hypocrisy beyond belief. Bernie Sanders is not exactly riding around in a Enterprise rent-a-car when he was campaigning for Hillary. He was on a private plane the entire time. So I find this man of the people stuff is just, it's a joke. But I do still reason, what are they after? I think that's what they're after, a full redistribution of wealth in every sense in every form that takes.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think you hit on something that's even deeper than that when you said, and somebody's got to be in charge. Like it's always, this is what needs to be done, and by the way, we're in charge.
Right, yes.
Like show me the Marxist that doesn't want to be in charge and run everything. Happens to have the pool in the house,
Well, it's interesting. There was a wonderful attorney that I worked with in Larchmont when I was the mayor here, and we always used to joke how one slight thing would go wrong. And people would come to the village hall to a board meeting and say, there ought to be a law against this. There should be a law for that. People want a law for everything when they can't solve problems on their own or they don't want to. Just simple conflict resolution, neighbor to neighbor, and we have to change the whole law. We have to come up with a law, change the law. And I'm not talking big things like zoning around developments and things. I mean, should you be able to have your deck light on after 7 at night? Like, oh boy. And I think that's just, if you're going to break it down to like the big division between these parties or philosophies about the role of government, it's like, where does individual responsibility end and the role for the government begin? Because that's where it all falls apart, I think. Don't you think?
I do. Hey, Liz, do you mind, I seem to be having a technical problem on my end where I'm getting like music piped in. I'm on an online thing. Do you mind filibustering for a minute? I'm going to call back in on a different line. It'll just be 30 seconds. And so I'll hit you with the question. unless you know what you want to say. But I think you're on a roll. I mean, but these are the core things that we seem to be confronting as Americans. We're going into an election where, Trump on the side. Trump is whatever he is. But you see, like the oldest political party in America is really, really flirting with a crop of leaders that thinks like the old Marxists to a pretty good extent.
Well, I tell you, it's going to be very interesting because I think even just water cooler conversation now, everyone's saying that the more Democrats talk this way, the better chance it has to be elected. Billy, I don't know if you're back.
I am back. Is that any better?
Yes, I think it's much better. We got a little music. So I'll tell you what I was just.
Yep.
Can you hear me? You okay?
I can. Oh, I'm okay. It was the craziest thing while I was talking to you. I was on on a Wi-Fi network, and throughout the entire half conversation we were having, there were people talking and music playing. And so this is much, much better. So much for Wi-Fi.
Oh, perfect. Well, what I was just starting to say was, the more Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez and those on the left keep up this kind of language and this rhetoric, the more, and this is all water cooler talk, everyone's saying the same thing, the better chance Trump has to be reelected. Full stop. There are a couple of major issues here that I think will rally either some previous never-Trumpers or folks who didn't support the president if they weren't never-Trumpers and voted for someone else the last time around. Because the lines are very clear here now on the policy stuff, far more clear than they were the last time. The divisions are vast. So if we assume that nothing disqualifying comes out of the Mueller report, I think you're going to see the president go feeling very emboldened over the next 6 months. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's interesting that he's talking budget that's, except for the military side, that's smaller spending. And I mean, it's a little hypocritical because the Republicans had a chance to deal with the debt a little bit and to knock the budget down, and they didn't. But as politics, it's a pretty good play, where I think they're going to start to squeeze the Democrats and force them to be big spenders again in the eyes of the public. And the other thing I think it's going to come down to is if Mueller's not bad enough to knock Trump out, and we'll see what happens, it's going to be which is the scarier scenario going forward. If it's a two-party race, two-person race, if Schultz doesn't take off, and that could change things. I mean, Perot got to 19, but let's say it's Democrat versus Republican. I don't know if it's going to be so much aspirational as who could do more damage to the country. And from where I sit, there's no question that a really ardent leftist could do more danger than Donald Trump any day of the week.
And what about the age-old, the devil you know versus the devil you don't know? I think we certainly know how Trump's going to govern because he's governing right now. I don't know what policies he could propose that would shock anybody right now or surprise them. And you think that Bernie Sanders is left now. Imagine if he gets elected and he's got a Democratic House to work with. So I think that's something that people will say, well, listen, Trump, we already know where he stands on X, Y, and Z. The economy is fairly stable. Well, we can talk about the debt. And I think I can't imagine. I don't know how it's not going to be a touchy-feely election. I mean, this is just really going to be what Trump said was it a month or two ago when he stood up and said, these guys are socialists. That's what they are. And the country's going to sit around and say to itself, do I want a socialist or do I want Trump?
Right. And the things I watch for with Trump is like, say, pulling out of Syria. From my perspective, it was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I mean, it seemed to me like a favor to Russia. But then you see a backtracking on that, and to me that's a little reassuring that wiser heads prevailed and that John Bolton got to him and a few others and explained why this was a really, really bad idea. And so he's backtracking. I'm okay with him backtracking. I mean, leaders are allowed to backtrack. And and he's been a little tougher on Russia. And the Chinese trade thing I never had a problem with. I'd like as much as I'd like the NATO members to pay more of their fair share, I'd like to be assured that relationship is going to survive a second term of President Trump. But what a Bernie Sanders could do, I mean, forget it. Or even Elizabeth Warren or any other acolyte of that flavor. But I think, I guess it will all depend, as we always say, on what Mueller has. If Mueller is if there's no hard evidence on Trump, I think he survives well. But I just find I'm staggered that the Democrats are blowing it this badly.
I think they can't help themselves. They're so giddy. They think that Trump is far less popular than the polls even show. We talked about this. He was at 46% after the State of the Union, and I can't remember what else. There was some other big public thing about 2 weeks ago that he did. Anyway, so 46% is not bad considering he has been under siege and also picking fights since the day he got there. And not just picking fights, he's delivering on his campaign pledges that he made. That he was frankly elected. He was elected. As we said, it's transparent. He wanted the wall. All the things that he ran on, he's trying to get done. So that's not a surprise. The travel ban, on and on. Tax cuts. So I guess beyond Mueller, though, Billy, there is probably the bigger question here is what's going to happen in New York State and the Southern District of New York and subpoenaing or suing the Trump organization. So my understanding is that there's a lot more concern around that than there among the party establishment, I guess, than there is around the Mueller report.
No, I think that's right. I mean, I think at the minimum, and sometimes predicting things just shows how dumb you are later on. But I think I think at a minimum, the Trump organization is going to be broken to bits as a result of the presidency. I mean, in New York State, we have an attorney general here who is as political and left wing and upfront about wanting to destroy the Trump and everything around him as can be, and she'll do it, and she has the power to do it. And so much of the Trump organization is based in New York. And they've, clearly it looks like they've been more than sloppy over the years and maybe cut a bunch of corners. And, I don't know why no one went after it before, but I know why they're going after it now. And I don't see how they miss. I think they're going to wreck that business over time. If, Mueller would be the sooner peril for that presidency. I mean, if something was really bad and there was some direct evidence, regarding the Russians, that could knock him out of running for a second term. The Republicans could, walk into the Oval Office and say, for the good of the country, the good of the party. But other than that, I think you're right, Liz. I think New York State's going to be the tougher thing.
Yeah. Do you think, on another subject, Billy, do you think the average guy in the street cares about all this news around the president interfering with the security clearance process for Ivanka and Jared, and clearly John Kelly was livid about it. He felt pressured, and everyone not felt they were pressured, and they're to grant the clearance, even though they were the intelligence agencies were advising against it, or presidential personnel too. It's not illegal to do it. It's been done before. I guess obviously the bigger point here is that they're family members, and so there's not really any precedent for that. But do you think anyone cares?
Not really. You know what I mean? I think people that don't. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not nothing, or I'm not saying that it's nothing, or that it's a practice that should occur or should ever occur again. But I don't think people really care. It's just so much noise. I mean, you turn on the networks, or you look in a lot of the papers of record around the country, and they're just after Trump on a daily basis for anything. And so even though this is not a great practice at all, I think people are blind to it at this point. They're just they've got totally deaf to criticism, and people in the who understand the national security sphere well and who care about the process and about guarding the process, sure, they care a lot. But that's, 1/10 of 1% of Americans. I mean, 1/10 of 1/10 of 1%. That's a handful of people. I don't think anybody else really cares. I think for the left and for Trump detractors, and I'm often one of them, it's something to throw at them that day. But nobody really cares. I agree with you.
No, and I think we also, at some point, we get to this. People actually start defending the president by saying, no matter what he does, everyone's picking on him, so why he may as well just ram through whatever he wants to ram through, and that whether that's security clearances or executive orders to get things done, because the obstruction on the other side has been so big, and of course the media attacks, so that people go, well, what do you expect them to do? I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It's funny, like no other president has ever driven it to this extent, where you really get down to the kind of the grinds of what Americans really care about. I mean, because we have faux outrage for everything, and we've been doing that for a long time, and that's a big game that both parties play. And how could you say this? And it drives the coffee table or the water cooler conversation on a Monday morning. But what really Americans care about, I think you're right. It's economics. It's like you want to make sure the military is pretty strong for the average person. And you want to be able to put food on the table. And if the economy is pretty good, and if we're not in a war someplace that's going south or is unwarranted, I think people just want to go on. I think you're right, Liz, also on the executive order on the border security. I know they're 60-some-odd% say they're against it, and if you told me, I'd say I was against it, but I don't think anybody really cares, except for those few. Trump builds a wall, through an executive order if he gets away with it. People say he kept his promise, and if he doesn't, they say, well, at least he tried. I don't think anybody really cares.
I don't think they do either. And I think I don't know if he's moved the needle at all on persuading people that this is the much bigger issue about border security. It's not just the wall, because he knows that all his messaging around border security actually people. Oh, I know a lot of people say, I don't care about a wall, but do I want better security? Of course I do. And maybe he's going to win it that way too. Because I don't know what the level of outrage is anymore by the anti-wall people.
Right. No, I think that's right. I'm just looking at the Real Clear Politics numbers for the election. I mean, then you wonder, like, you put the consulting hat on, and you wonder, but is it possible for Trump to win re-election with the wave of turnout that will clearly come from the Democrats? And I guess it depends on independents. But so right now the average is he's 41.8 favorable, 54.4 unfavorable. Can somebody win with unfavorables that high? And those unfavorables will come down, but they've been pretty consistent. They've been consistent, for 2 solid years. Could he possibly win a Wisconsin again or a Pennsylvania? We're going to really test it. I think we're going to test it in 2020. But the Democrats are going to do their best to screw up their chance. So we'll find out. I think we're going to find out whether we're really a center-right country or not.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Do you think that the president, the voters' impressions or views of the president are going to affect their down-ballot votes the way they did in 2020? I mean, in the midterms?
Yeah. Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Big time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And we saw that just wash through, the Northeast. And, here in New York, we just watched, Republicans that have been in office forever that were very well liked, but, many of them, if not all of them, were in, Democratic districts, some marginally and some, 2-3 to 1 Democratic districts, but they still were reelected year after year. All of them are gone. Every one of them. I mean, just an utter wipeout, an avalanche. And it was just because people were sending a message. It's funny. I was in Fort Lauderdale a couple of weeks ago, and I was online at a hotel, and somehow we started talking about New York, and they talked about a candidate that you and I both know who ran for governor of New York, Rob Astorino. And they lived in this county, and they said, oh, we love Rob so much. Please tell him how sorry we were that we couldn't vote for him for re-election. But we adored him. We loved everything that we did. We appreciated how great he was on taxes and clarity and all the rest of it. But we had no other way to send a message against Trump. And it was, here's somebody who loved the candidate, but they were still willing to go against him because they thought it was a message. So I think, you get that. I think that's right.
Well,
but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. What about Biden?
Biden's interesting. I mean, everyone's saying that he's in. Have you seen anything official on that?
No, but I did see Chris Coons on this morning, Senator Coons of Delaware, on CBS, and it appeared that he'd been authorized and deputized to go out and be sure, to basically say that he's going to do it. That it's 99 or 98 or whatever percentage it is there. And Coons laid out the case for him, generally that he's level-headed, measured, no one has more experience. He worked in the Senate. There's no question that our global allies would support it. There was no talk about who the vice president would be, or someone asked about his age, and he said, "Well, look around. I mean, between Bernie Sanders and even the president himself, it's not like Biden's out of the window of between 70 and 80 or whatever it is. I think that's
he's got those chompers. It's like he's got Jared Marshall teeth. So he doesn't look any older than anybody else.
No, he doesn't look older. I think maybe the bigger question is, rather than his numerical age, is he really a man of the past? And if, generally these elections are about moving forward. So that, he's already done his stuff and it's time for some new blood. And the left, he certainly doesn't seem like he's going to indulge the AOCs of the world and that agenda. He'll have his own agenda. So I think that'll be a fight. I don't know how the rest of the part, I don't know how many people internally want him to run. Do you? I haven't seen any polls around that.
Yeah, I remember he had good polls suggesting that Democrats didn't want him to run. It was a while back, though. But can you still hear me, Liz? Okay.
I can.
Okay. But I think the biggest mistake that he could make, I think he needs to take a risk, and I'm just putting, consulting cap on here, and I'd love to have you check my math, is I think the biggest mistake that he could make is to jump in and act like a regular candidate. If he jumps on the presidential trail and just becomes number 16 or 17 in the field, I think that he could disappear, he could be overtaken. He's an elder statesman. He should act like one. And I think what I would do would be to keep him someplace. He could make statements here or there, but to freeze out the field and say Biden's going to be getting in January or December or whatever it is, and kind of let everybody hack each other up. Because if he's just one of those people on that debate stage, I think he's going to get overwhelmed. He could. I thought the same with John McCain, by the way. I thought that he should have done that in 2008. That he shouldn't have, gone hat in hand, to every little town in America. Everybody knew who he was. I thought he should have stayed in Washington and talked big things, big aspirational, forward-looking, type things. But I think you disappear a little bit when you join the pack. I mean, for him to, for Joe Biden to be running around with Beto O'Rourke, and hitting the same towns and diners seems ridiculous to me.
Do you think that voters have gotten so spoiled, though, that they predict, obviously, the caucuses are different. Maybe does your rule apply to the caucuses and to New Hampshire as well, or are you just talking big picture after we get through that first go around? Because I don't know that you can pass the Cornhusker parties.
Yeah, no, I think he does a little bit, but I don't think he needs to make. I mean, I may be completely wrong, and you've spent a lot of time in New Hampshire and in Iowa with presidential candidates, and I think he has to do the bare minimum. I just don't think he needs to start so early. I think he needs to say, I'm going to do this in my candidacy. I'm going to be doing some high level stuff, and my candidacy is going to start later. I mean, I think he's better off kind of freezing the field out, and then really people waiting for Biden to make the entrance. It's just my gut. I may be completely wrong on it, but if he starts, you're right. You remember, like the old joke in New Hampshire was, have you met? Was it Morris Udall or somebody? Somebody was asked, a New Hampshire voter was asked, do you know Morris Udall? And he says, no, I've only met him a couple of times. I mean, you really have to be up there. I get that. But Biden's been in New Hampshire so many times over the years. Does that buy him anything? Or does he have to really get back and fight with the teenagers? Does he have to look young and go and run through there? I think not. I think there's got to be a way to do it to keep him separate from the pack and above the pack.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Maybe there is no way. There is no way. I mean, I remember thinking about that for McCain because he was such a senior statesman, and it's like, why can't you go back to pre-Lincoln days where other people were sent out to talk for you and to play you up and to you be the humble person in Washington doing his or her job, talking the big game, a speech here and there, big inspirational stuff, but let other people do that footwork for you because that's exhausting too.
Well, I think, Biden is we know what his strengths are, and he's very relatable, and I think he gets he can probably straddle this line as effectively as anyone, the statesman, the vice president, the former senator, the blah, blah, and the, backslapping, hot dog eating, candidate. And so no one's going to choose him being an elitist if he skips a bunch of these grassroots things, to your point. He has a role to play, and particularly now, the reason he's running is because he thinks that the country needs an adult. So I think he can save the adult, and he doesn't have to do what everyone else has to do to demonstrate their. Look at Gillibrand, trying to eat pizza and figure out whether she needs a fork or not, or fried chicken. He doesn't have to do that.
That's right, and you really, I could see a series of ads, kind kind of third person, kind of verifying ads. I trust Joe Biden. He was, old Uncle Joe. You could, I always say you can almost smell the Aqua Velva, but a little bit of reassurance with Biden that, in this crazy political world, you got to, who do you trust? Who can you count on to be stable there? And it's Joe Biden. When you compare him to, maybe the excitement of an Andrea Ocasio-Cortez, and I know she's not running for president yet, but I think there's a really good conversation to be had there for a lot of voters. And the more he mixes it up and gets into these little daily skirmishes, the more he's diminished, I think. I mean, he can only punch down. That's all he can do in this race is punch down. And I'm not sure it's going to serve well.
That's where he makes mistakes, and we know that. And we've seen it with him.
That's right.
Yep. He's got the loose lip. Well, what about daylight savings time? It appears that there is one issue that the world agrees on right now, and that's to make daylight savings time permanent.
Make daylight savings?
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, forgot to get rid of it. I'm just too confused. I teach Sunday school on Sunday mornings, which is a big laugh in itself, and I almost blew it yesterday. I really almost blew it. I didn't know, and my wife was like, by the way, it's going forward. I had no idea. Not a clue.
Yeah. But I hate the dark mornings. Hate them.
Yeah, no, it's true. Whatever it is, I hope they just decide it. Where I went to in my mind was all those years growing up where we try and convince the bar to stay open the extra hour, and it's like they're not going to do it, but you try it every year. What are you kidding me, Luke? It's only 2:58 now. It's not 3:58.
Yeah, no, it's
that was an actual quote, by the way.
You're a good soul doing that CCD teaching, Bill. You are. This is exactly what America needs. You are the ultimate civic leader and participant, and you're what makes communities go round.
I think I'm the worst possible teacher, but you're a former mayor saying that. I started to do a couple of things locally because the Federalist Party, I'm the chairman for a bit of the Federalist Party of America, and that's one of their foundational things is if you want to be a member, you have to give back some way to your community. And so that kind of forced me into the game, and it's really been a good experience, and it gives you a different perspective. And I remember when you were mayor, you certainly had a more local perspective to the point where you were running and screaming like you were being chased by bees. That's a tough job, Liz. Unpaid.
Oh, my Lord. Well, on that note, I think we're almost out of time. Now, you're doing
He was like the killer bee flying above your head, yeah.
Be nice to all of you out there. Be nice to your local mayors.
Be nice to your local mayors, right. My road's not fixed. Can you get the thing? Can someone get my packages from the town? You go, no.
Good heavens, no. Well, this weekend is St. Patrick's Day, so all I can tell you is my mother was very, very strict, but every year on St. Patrick's Day, she would write a letter to the principal excusing us from school saying we were home with the green desk, which we thought was so much fun because it was wildly out of character for her. So
that is so out of character for your mother.
Yes. Now, this weekend's on the Sunday.
The green desk?
The green desk. And so that's why we were home. And isn't that funny? We just thought that was off the wall. So I would tell everyone to take the day off if you were in school, but it's a Sunday this year, so you're not going to, it's no special treat.
No, that's right. I usually stay away from St. Patrick's Day, only because I grew up in the city and we lived near the parade route, and we used to come out and we had as you know, my mother had died when I was very young, so we had an Irish nanny who had, lived through the revolution in 16, 17, 18, in the 20s in Ireland. And so she had us so afraid. She had every beer bottle on the street had a bomb in it. Every can had a bomb. And so as kids, don't get near those Irish. She was Irish, you know what I mean? There's bombs in there, Billy. They're going to get you, And so I don't think I went to the parade until I was 35, But it is a big day, certainly in New York. I think the parade's bigger than in Dublin. Chicago obviously has a big parade, and Boston. And I'm just really appreciative that so many people dress in green, because we're really not that nice when you get down to it. We put up a good veneer, but we're not that nice.
No, and we're certainly not that open to others, that's for sure. We think we're so funny. Smart. Terrible.
We do. You know.
Oh, gosh. Well, nothing's worse than having to be a politician at those parades, because they're always in trouble on some issue or another that has nothing to do with the parade. So it's much better just being a parade participant and hanging out and having your beer and, waving a flag.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I had forgotten. I was actually the spokesman for the St. Patrick's Day Parade in New York about 5 years ago. I was brought in for 1 year. It was when the issue finally it culminated, whether gay organizations could march in the parade under their own banner, and this is a religious parade was the church's position, and it was kind of back and forth for years, and it was having a detrimental effect on the parade. And I was brought in to be the mouthpiece for a year, and boy, the politics of parades, I had no idea. I still have reporters calling me to this day, and it was 5 or 6 years ago, and it's so much is involved. I don't envy anybody who has to run them year in and year out, because there's always some controversy, not just for this parade, but for any parade, and there shouldn't be. There should not be. I'm a big fan. I cry at parades, Liz. You could put me at I cried at the Steuben Day Parade. My father fought the Germans in World War II, and I'm blubbering on the side, because you just give a couple of French horns and a couple of flags and old veterans, and I'm a mess. But, there's something very American about parades of all kinds, and it'll be nice to, maybe I'll go down this year and I'll skip kicking the bottles, just, to be sure. But it is nice.
Well, we're out of time. It's 3 o'clock.
It's 3 o'clock.
It's 7 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. Okay, we taste.
Okay. Yes.
Meanwhile, the whole world changed right after 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. The show will be terribly dated. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Always a pleasure.
That's great. We'll talk to you again next week, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Liz.
Bye.
Bye.
Sweet America, God done shed his grace on thee. He crowned our good. Yes, he did. Heavy brotherhood from